Good evening. This is the news tonight, your daily roundup of all the news from India and around the world. I'm Ishan Russell, and first the headlines we're tracking today. The Jammu and Kashmir governor steps up efforts to facilitate a new government, writes to PDP and BJP to discuss the way forward. Jharkhand gets its first non-tribal chief minister after BJP's legislature party picks Raghuvar Das as its leader. The army vows to intensify operations and violence hit Assam. Bandh paralyzes life as government faces flack over reported ignorance of an IB alert. And Pakistani forces intensify operations against militants, killed top Pak Taliban leader Saddam, accused to be the mastermind of the Peshawar attack. Well, a top story tonight. The governor of Jammu and Kashmir has written a letter to the PDP and BJP to discuss plans on government formation. Now, the BJP is currently in talks with the PDP, among other stakeholders in the state, for a possible alliance. However, the Congress hasn't given up just yet, ready to extend support to the PDP to keep the BJP out.
The race to form the next government in Jammu and Kashmir has started, with the governor inviting the top two parties for a discussion. The initiative by the governor comes after BJP General Secretary Ram Madhav met PDP's Muzaffar Beg on Thursday. The PDP emerged as the single largest party with 28 seats, while the BJP ended a close second with 25 in the assembly polls. Having worked as allies before, both parties have history of governance in the state. However, the BJP refused to clear the air about its choice of ally.
The issue is not with comfort with any political party and all that. Issue is not that. Issue is how can we provide a stable government in the state. You must remember that we also have a big mandate in the state. We have secured highest number of votes. We have secured second largest number of seats. So we also have a mandate in the state. So we will work it out with our partners.
But the Congress has accused the BJP of trying to defy the mandate by engaging in talks with the PDP. The party is ready to provide support of its 12 MLAs to the PDP to keep the BJP out of the equation.
Bharatiya Janata Party is attempting to negate the democratic wish of people of Jammu and Kashmir expressed through one of the best fought, contested and where the election where turnout was among the highest.
जहां तक कांग्रेस पार्टी का सवाल है, अगर पीडीपी हमसे सपोर्ट मांगे तो हम उसके लिए तैयार हैं, क्योंकि हम चाहते हैं एक स्टेबल गवर्नमेंट हो, क्योंकि पोस्ट फ्लड रिकंस्ट्रक्शन के लिए एक स्टेबल गवर्नमेंट की बहुत जरूरत है.
Meanwhile, National Conference seems to be playing the waiting game and hoping for a chance to play a kingmaker's role. Former Chief Minister Omar Abdullah's reported meeting with BJP leaders in Delhi has kept the suspense going over who will eventually join hands to form the next government. Bureau Report, Rajya TV.
All right, so Jammu and Kashmir is not quite settled, but Jharkhand is because senior BJP leader Raghuvar Das has been chosen as Jharkhand's first non-tribal chief minister. Day after the BJP's alliance's emphatic victory in the state, Das was elected by the legislature party that decided against the tribal for the post. Now, he'll be Jharkhand's 10th chief minister since the state was formed just 14 years ago.
No more a tribal CM in tribal-dominated Jharkhand. A response to most of the BJP seats in Jharkhand coming from non-tribal areas. And the fact that BJP tribal leader and former Chief Minister Arjun Munda lost from Kharsavan. Das, formerly a student politician of the ABVP, is known to be close to Prime Minister Modi and party chief Amit Shah. The meeting of new MLAs was unanimous in picking the MLA from Jamshedpur East to lead the party in the state.
अपने पार्टी के सभी वरिष्ठ नेता, प्रदेश के नेता, सभी कार्यकर्ताओं का मैं हृदय से आभार प्रकट करता हूं कि एक मजदूर को भारतीय जनता पार्टी ने इतनी बड़ी सम्मान दी, जिसकी मैंने कभी कल्पना नहीं की थी.
मैं झारखंड की जनता को भी बधाई देता हूं और धन्यवाद देता हूं, जिन्होंने भारतीय जनता पार्टी का समर्थन किया है. भारतीय जनता पार्टी की सरकार अपने अलायंस के साथ पूरी ताकत से यहाँ पर एक सुशासन लाएगी और सबका साथ लेकर के सबका विकास करेगी.
But the political opposition was quick to attack Das's non-tribal origins, calling the choice a violation of the sentiment of the people and an undemocratic break from tradition. The last 9 governments in Jharkhand have been headed by tribal CMs, including 2 from the BJP itself.
तो ये परंपरा थी कि आदिवासी मुख्यमंत्री बनेंगे। इस परंपरा को भारतीय जनता पार्टी ने तोड़ दिया। इसका मतलब है कि उनका आदिवासियों पर भरोसा नहीं।
Das is a former deputy chief minister, having worked under Arjun Munda. He's had a fair share of controversy too, accused of awarding undue favours to a Singapore-based firm and giving out lucrative contracts. Now, as head of a majority government, Raghuvar Das faces the challenge of living up to the BJP's promise of providing much-needed clean, development-oriented administration to Jharkhand. He'll be sworn in on Sunday. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha Television.
Moving on to the northeast now, where the army today vowed to intensify its operations and violence at Assam. Coordinated action with the armies of Bhutan and Myanmar has been planned to hunt down the militants. Normal life in Assam was affected today by a 12-hour bandh called by several organizations. So far, at least 83 people have been killed in attacks by the NDFBS militants.
A day after Home Minister Rajnath Singh called for an all-out operation against militants in Assam, Army Chief General Dalbir Singh Suhag met him in Delhi this morning. Rajnath was in Assam on Thursday to take stock of violence hit Assam, where at least 80 people have died in the last 3 days. The Army Chief said operations against the NDFBS militants will be intensified.
हमारी 66 columns अभी वहाँ पर operate कर रही हैं and we are definitely going to intensify the operations.
Our military presence is already there, so it is all out going to be operation led by the Home Ministry.
The situation in Assam remained grim for the 3rd day. Though curfew was relaxed in some parts, a 12-hour bandh hit normal life in the state on Friday. In Dibrugarh, people torched trucks to express their anguish over the violence. Thousands of villagers have fled their homes since the massacre took place. Over 10,000 have taken shelter in relief camps since the killings. Protest marches took place condemning the attacks. The state government is facing flack for reportedly ignoring an alert issued by the IB.
Totally failure from the government side. This is the time for zero tolerance for terrorism.
It is because of the ineptness of the government, I should say. You see, on that day when this was going on, our Chief Secretary was in Kaziranga in Elephant.
कानून व्यवस्था मेंटेन करना सरकार का, राज्य सरकार का काम है और राज्य सरकार ने पूरी तरह इस मामले में कंप्लीट नेग्लिजेंस दिखाया है.
The centre has already dispatched 50 companies of CAPFs to Assam and paramilitary forces along with the state police. The Home Minister said that the centre has instituted NIA probe into the Assam killings. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Now, Finance Minister Arun Jaitley held the first pre-budget consultation with finance ministers and representatives of state governments on Friday. In a closed-door meeting that included some chief ministers and lasted well over 2 hours, Jaitley heard the expectations of states from the general budget. Jaitley will present his first full budget in February next year.
Finance ministers of several states attended the pre-budget consultation with Arun Jaitley in New Delhi on Friday. President Pranab Mukherjee had started this tradition of hearing the views of the states during his tenure as finance minister. States have demanded more spending on the infrastructure sector to boost growth. They also want a lower interest rate regime and relaxation in the targets set by the Fiscal Responsibility Budget Management Act and measures to boost liquidity in the market.
In the present state, to give a boost to the economy, funds are required and therefore funds should be made available at affordable interest. Some states even went to the extent of suggesting that the FRBM limit be raised for this year in order to infuse liquidity into the market.
Telangana and Andhra Pradesh have sought more grants as they face a fund crunch. Most states expressed satisfaction over the formula agreed over GST.
There was an overwhelming support for the centre's proposals which were arrived at in consultation with the states on the GST. The states are, of course, anxious that the CST compensations be paid to them expeditiously.
At the meeting, there was widespread support for the Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana and Swachh Bharat Mission. The finance minister said states want unbanked areas to be covered by the scheme as early as possible. Some states demanded more measures for the tourism sector, while some others demanded increased spending on the social sector. Krishnanand Tripaঠি's report, Rajya Sabha TV.
A severe cold wave continues unabated in pretty much all of North India. A thick layer of fog enveloped most states in the region, leading to cancellation of several flights and trains. Extreme weather conditions have claimed nearly 70 lives this winter so far.
After a chilly Christmas, the national capital Delhi woke up to another cold morning on Friday. Cold weather coupled with moderate to dense fog continued to grip the city, leading to low visibility. The minimum temperature settled 2 notches below the season's average at 6.3 degrees Celsius.
ठंड बहुत है और इसी सारे आग ताप रहे हैं आग सेक रहा हूँ चाय पी रहा हूँ गुजारा कर रहा हूँ टाइम कट रही है
The thick fog affected rail and air services as nearly 50 Delhi-bound trains were reported to be running late, some by nearly 20 hours.
इतनी पड़ रही है दूसरा कोहरे की वजह से लेकिन इतनी लेट मैंने आज तक अपनी लाइफ में कभी नहीं देखी ट्रेन.
There was no let-up in the trail in Uttar Pradesh, a state that has seen the maximum season-related casualties this winter. Despite the sun shining in most places, cold winds and fog kept the mercury low. Similar conditions prevailed in the states of Punjab, Haryana and Rajasthan as well. Dry weather coupled with chilly winds dipped mercury levels to a low of 1.3 degrees in Pilani and 1.5 degrees in Churu. The hill states of Jammu and Kashmir, Uttarakhand and Himachal Pradesh continue to deal with sub-zero temperatures. The weatherman predicts no immediate respite from the cold in the coming days. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Now let's take a look at all the other national news we are tracking in nationwide. Troubled budget carrier SpiceJet has submitted a revival plan to the government on the basis of a proposed investment of $200 million. Founding promoter Ajay Singh and US-based JP Morgan Chase have agreed to reinvest in the carrier. The airline's COO claims there is no outstanding amount with any oil marketing company and that the airline was flying 230 flights a day with 18 operational Boeing aircraft. The two investors are likely to buy stake from current promoter Kalanidhi Maran within a month to help the airline stay afloat. The Enforcement Directorate today questioned Punjab Cabinet Minister Bikram Singh Majithia in connection with a money laundering case. The agency is investing the international money transaction link in the multi-crore drugs racket detected by the Punjab police last year. The multi-billion rupee racket had been first detected in March 2013. Home Minister Rajnath Singh distributed Rs 5 lakhs as compensation to 17 Delhi families who lost their members in the 1984 anti-Sikh riots. A hike in compensation was announced by the government in October. The move is being criticized by opposition parties who claim that it is done in view of upcoming polls in the national capital. In the first swine flu death of the season in Delhi, a 51-year-old woman died of multiple organ failure at a hospital on Wednesday. The health department has provided Tamiflu vaccine to everyone who was in contact with the woman. 2 cases of swine flu have been reported in Delhi till now. Well, we'll take a very quick break right now, but coming up on the other side, all the international news. Ukraine and Russia peace deal falters. Key round of talks in Minsk have been cancelled. Welcome back. This is the news tonight. Now, 4G technology and mobile towers servicing them have become the latest cause for concern because for both health of the people and the environment. Loopholes in current mobile radiation regulation policy have only multiplied the risk on both counts. Take a look at this report.
With 50 crore cell phones in the country, today every second Indian owns a cell phone. The focus is now on 4G services, which are not adequately covered by the mobile radiation regulation policy. Loopholes in present policy with regards to 4G services have emboldened operators to increase the number of towers and presumably the dangers of radiation as well.
That is, the Indian towers radiate at only 1/10 of the power that the towers in USA or Europe radiate at.
In 2013, an interministerial committee found that microwave radiation impacts health of users by raising body temperature.
Then there is a lot of public interest litigation has been filed in various high courts all across the country, and the Supreme Court has consolidated these and is hearing petitions on the safety of the electromagnetic frequencies.
Exposure to low-level emissions causes burning and tingling sensations on the skin of the head. It also causes fatigue, dizziness, memory loss, affects concentration, and causes digestive upsets. Finally, the report even concludes that cell phone towers may have caused butterflies, bees, insects, and sparrows to vanish.
Look at the Environment Protection Act as an umbrella legislation. And whether courts should intervene or not, why not? In case you want to err, then err on the side of caution. And that's what even the NGT Act says,
In the absence of a policy framework, several activists have approached high courts in states like Rajasthan and Kerala. Both high courts asked operators to remove towers, even as operators challenged their order in the Supreme Court. Rajkamal Rao's report for Rajya Sabha TV.
The security has been stepped up in Rajasthan after 16 state ministers received email threats of a terror strike on Republic Day next month. The ministers, including Home Minister Gulab Chand Kataria, received threatening messages on their official email IDs, purportedly sent by terrorist group Indian Mujahideen. Now, the police said it is trying to verify whether it's a hoax to create panic in peak tourist season in the state. Police officers emphasized that the mail must not be allowed to cause panic. They say it's unusual for a terror group to announce when and where they intend to strike.
मेल में किसी प्रकार का स्पेसिफिक टारगेट या घटना के संबंध में उल्लेख नहीं किया गया है, लेकिन क्योंकि इस प्रकार के अनेक इनपुट्स इंटेलिजेंस एजेंसी से हमारी और सेंट्रल एजेंसी से प्राप्त हो रही हैं, इसलिए निश्चित रूप से सतर्कता हमने पूरे राज्य में बढ़ाई है.
Some international news now. In days after the ghastly Peshawar school attack that killed 150 people, mostly children, Pakistani army has intensified its operations against the Taliban. In retaliation to the attack, security forces today gunned down a key player in the attack and arrested another. Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif admitted presence of militants in Punjab, saying there will be zero tolerance for militancy.
Pakistan government has launched a massive crackdown on banned militant outfits and seminaries in the wake of the Peshawar school attack. A senior Taliban commander, Saddam, believed to be a key player of the massacre, has been killed by security forces in the Khyber Agency on Friday. Another accomplice has been captured alive. Vowing to rid the country of terrorist elements, Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif said their days are now numbered.
मैं दहशतगर्दों को कौम का फैसला सुना रहा हूं कि अब तुम्हारे दिन गिने जा चुके हैं. हमारे बच्चों को निशाना बनाकर हमारे मुस्तकबिल पर हमला करने वालों के लिए यहाँ कोई जाए पनाह नहीं. पाकिस्तान की सरजमीन तुम्हारे लिए तंग हो चुकी है. तुमने हमारे मासूम बच्चों का लहू बहाकर पाकिस्तानी कौम को जो दर्द दिया है, उसका मुंह तोड़ जवाब दिया जाएगा.
Sharif addressed the nation on Thursday after a marathon meeting with all political parties and the military leadership to thrash out a comprehensive plan of action to fight terror.
दहशतगर्दी में सजा याफ्ता मुजरमों की फांसी की सजा पर अमल दरामद का फैसला किया. माजी में दहशतगर्दी की संगीन वारदातों में मुलव्विस मुजरम कानूनी निज़ाम की बाज़ कमज़ोरियों के बायस सज़ा से बचते रहे. लिहाजा फौजी अफसरान की सरबराही में अब स्पेशल ट्रायल कोर्ट्स कायम की जा रही हैं.
Security agencies also successfully foiled a militant plan to attack the Kot Lakhpat jail, where at least 50 terrorists on death row are lodged. 3 militants linked with the plot were also arrested. At least 50 militants have been handed down the death sentence by the courts after the government ended the 6-year moratorium on executions. But many question if it would do any good to improve the legal process in the long run. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Well, a jolt to the Ukrainian-Russian peace deals hopes because a key round of peace talks scheduled in Minsk on Friday has been called off. Now, no reason has been cited for the cancellation as of now. Talks started on Wednesday to try to end the conflict in eastern Ukraine. Reports say Wednesday's talks focused on troop withdrawals and aid, although no details of any progress emerged. Friday's round was expected to tackle issues including the withdrawal of heavy weapons from the front line, the exchange of prisoners and ending Ukraine's economic blockade of rebel-held areas. Nearly 4,700 people were killed in the conflict over several months before a ceasefire and framework peace deal was announced in Minsk in September. Well, for more international news and updates, this is Global Buzz. Malaysian Prime Minister Najib Razak will cut short his US vacation and return to the country on Saturday to deal with the country's worst floods in decades. Razak has come under fire for going on holiday while Malaysia faces devastating floods which have killed 5 people and displaced more than 100,000. Razak claims he's been in constant touch with disaster and relief officials. The Chinese premier has praised Hong Kong's authorities for not giving in to protester. Premier Lee commended the efforts to maintain stability in a year which saw massive pro-democracy street protests. Beijing has refused concessions to demonstrators who've been demanding free leadership elections. South Korea has stepped up security around power plants after hackers penetrated the computer network and released sensitive documents online. The hackers had threatened to damage 3 nuclear plants unless the government shut them down. The investigators have not identified the hackers and are suspecting the role of North Korea. South Korean officials have assured the country's 23 nuclear reactors remain secure. Time for a very quick break right now, but coming up on the other side, it's been 10 years since that massive tsunami that affected lakhs in Southeast Asia. Families are still picking up the pieces. We'll revisit that. Welcome back. This is the news tonight. Some sports now. And day one of the third India-Australia test at the MCG ended on quite an even note, with Australia putting on 259 for the loss of 5 wickets. Australia won the toss and elected to bat first, but failed to get a good start as in-form opener David Warner was removed for a duck in the second over. The hosts, however, recovered with 115-run partnership for the third wicket, with both Chris Rogers and Shane Watson scoring half-centuries. Indian bowlers put up pressure after lunch and were rewarded with 4 more wickets before the end of play. Fast bowler Mohammad Shami and Umesh Yadav took 2 wickets each, while spinner Ravichandran Ashwin got a wicket. At stumps on day one, Australian captain Steven Smith was unbeaten on 72 runs, with Brad Haddon at the other end. Now, a decade ago, one of the largest ever earthquakes recorded struck off the coast of Indonesia, triggering a massive tsunami that swept away entire communities around the Indian Ocean. About 3 lakh people were killed. 10 years on, many coastal towns and villages have rebuilt their communities and lives, but the disaster still leaves an imprint on the entire region.
Prayers and memorial services on the shores of the Indian Ocean on the 10th anniversary of the tsunami, the disaster that has left an indelible mark on the region. The WHO called for strong response and preparedness to deal with natural disasters.
The greatest mortality from natural disasters and outbreaks is really in the regions of Southeast Asia region. And therefore, it's extremely important that countries take their response and their preparedness very strongly. We in the region have been pressing more for preparedness.
On 26th of December 2004, a 9.1 magnitude earthquake off Indonesia's western coast sparked a series of towering waves that triggered destruction across 14 countries as far apart as Indonesia, Thailand, India, Sri Lanka and Somalia. Close to 3 lakh people were swallowed by the sea. The Indonesian province of Aceh, close to the quake epicenter, was the worst hit. Thousands gathered at the Great Mosque, one of the few structures in the town to survive the tsunami, for the prayers.
Dan ini membuat masyarakat mengenang kembali tsunami dan bersyukur atas keselamatan ini semua. Karena tsunami juga di samping musibah juga membawa berkah.
Many commemoration ceremonies are due to take place across the region on Friday as well. In India too, while a number of lessons have been learned with regard to public awareness of tsunamis, India's infrastructural preparedness has improved. It has a state-of-the-art tsunami early warning system in place. Yet many of the tsunami survivors have still not recovered their lives fully.
அது வருமதான் எங்களுக்கு ஆனா அந்த நேரம் நிறைய குடும்பம் பாதிப்பு நிறைய குழந்தைங்க நிறைய பெரியவங்க எல்லாம் செத்தாங்க ஆனா இருந்ததெல்லாம் போயிடுச்சு அது அதுங்களுக்கு எல்லாமே ஒண்ணுமே இல்ல எல்லாம் போயிடுச்சு அரசாங்கம் நிறைய உதவிங்க பண்ணி இருக்குது
இந்த ஏரியா விட்டு போறா போல இல்ல யாரும்
என்ன இன்னொரு சுனாமி வந்தா கூட சந்திக்கிறதுக்கு தயாரா தான் இருக்கிறாங்க ஜனங்க. இன்னொரு சுனாமி வந்தா எல்லாம் அழிவு வந்தா ஒரே ஐடியா வரட்டுன்னு சொல்லிட்டு தான் அதே போல தான் இருக்கிறாங்க. எங்களுக்கு இதே இடத்துல அவசியம் போட்டு கட்டி மதில் கட்டி கொடுங்க.
A number of drill sessions are going to be held in many countries to develop disaster awareness among vulnerable communities. However, there are still concerns about the region's preparedness for another tsunami. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Well, that's the news tonight. Good night.